I gotta go to bed soon.
This is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I'm Andrew Savage.
I'm Nancy Richards, and
And we're on a geriatric timetable here.
we're like, all right, we got to record this because we have to go to bed. It's and it's 8 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah. So if we were just saying we used to have some wild nights. We were out till 2 a.m. Now it's like, oh, it's 8. We got to be in.
Get up in the morning and teach like nothing happens.
Yeah,
So those days, and then I was just saying, I've been subbing, and my fifth period class has knocked me out. I'm exhausted. Like
yeah.
I was like, ooh. I recall like I've been reminded this week why I wanted to retire.
Yeah, well, you know, and just the day-to-day stresses and pressures of life, and then you have the dystopian nightmare in our country unfolding before our eyes every single day with news notifications by the
It,
minute.
it's a lot. It's
Yeah,
a lot. It's like I'm getting a puppy tomorrow. Well, not a puppy. A I'm getting a rescue tomorrow. So I'm I need a dog to pet because I'm so
you
like
need an emotional support
I need
animal.
an emotional support animal to handle all this stuff. Oh my Lord. So I need a puppy.
Well, I forgot to ask you when we were talking about it initially before we came on, but how old is the dog?
He's a year old. He's from Mexico, so I'm gonna make him carry his passport whenever we go for a walk, you know. I don't
Yeah,
want
we
him to get
don't.
detained.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's coming from San Diego. There's a rescue in San Diego that he actually came from Tijuana, so they rescued some dogs from street dogs from Mexico. And one of the women who run the rescue also lives in New York. So she brought him back to New York and happened to be the dog that I like. I wasn't planning on adopting him. He's the type of dog I wanted to get. I'm looking for a smaller dog, um, just so I can travel with easily. And I never had smaller dogs. I was usually, I because I get rescues, so I usually wind up like with a pit mix or some kind of a terrier mix. And but I really was like, if I'm going to adopt, I want something small that I can take on an airplane. And then last night I get this text message. I see this dog on an airplane. I'm like, oh my God! And it's a not a Grimson. It's a not a Bichon. It's like a little terrier dog, and he was coming to New York, so I'm gonna go see him tomorrow. Very
Okay.
excited.
That's good.
Yes.
And you do need an emotional support dog. I remember I always tell people the story about how we started this podcast. It was the night of the Biden and Trump debate. Oof.
Yeah.
And you had a dog there, and I was like, I'm so happy I have an emotional support animal with me.
Yeah, the Fosters, they I was a foster, but they fostered us. So,
Yeah.
um yeah, so we definitely need some sort of lightness. I thank God for the Daily Show to kind of help me laugh about this sometimes. So, I mean, they're very good politically as far as information and their reporting, but they make light of things, so it helps you laugh about some of this stuff.
Yeah, well, I've kind of gotten the stories from a mix of different sources. I this time around in Trump 2.0, I'm not as glued to cable news as I was in the first time.
Yeah,
But
no.
I do get it from a variety of sources. Of course, I've seen the videos coming out of Minneapolis about the different things happening, and it just seems that since the murder of Renee Good on January 7th, they have doubled down in their presence in Minneapolis.
I think it's been a week. It's a week today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, they've doubled down in their presence in Minneapolis. So of course I've seen the different videos coming out, and I have enjoyed watching the ice goons slip and fall, the burger Gestapo that they are. And I noticed that I've been seeing the videos, but I've also been listening to it on the different podcasts I listen to. I have different accounts of the I've Had It podcasts, the Bulwark. I've
Yeah,
listened to
listen to
it
the
on,
bulwark.
yeah, Molly Jong Fast's podcasts, and Kara Swisher's podcast and Pivot. And so I also I've heard a little bit from each one of those tales, and I try to stay informed without having to see the president or hear him as much as possible, because his voice just grates on me, and just having to see that full cake makeup face is just ick. And so I don't.
So here's my, did he fucking say that of thing of the week? Um, Rubio and I think Vance went to Denmark to talk about, I
They
want,
came here. They
oh,
came here.
yeah, I want Greenland. So the prime minister was talking about how, it's not for sale and of Greenland, and Donald Trump's like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "It's the prime minister." He goes, "I don't know him." It's just, shouldn't you know the prime minister of the country you want to take? So because he doesn't know him, he's like, well, like he's not valid to him because he doesn't know who he is. Yeah, he is valid.
Sounds like what Mariah Carey said about J-Lo. I don't know her.
Yes, it's kind of like that. So therefore, I can take it. He like
Yeah.
reminds me of a kid in a candy store, like a toy store. Like, I want that toy. I want that toy.
Well, what was interesting is one of the guests, I think it was Susan Glasser on the Bulwark. She said it. She said that when she interviewed him for a book she was doing back, in the intermittent years when he was down at Mar-a-Lago, between.
Still at Mar-a-Lago. He's there all
Yeah.
the time. Yeah,
Well, no, but in intermittently between term one and term two.
between the
Um,
wars.
Yeah, she asked him, she was talking to him about his early days in, real estate development, air quotes. And he said, oh, there was this plaza that he built somewhere, oh, that he was building up somewhere. And there was one store left that he didn't own and he wanted it. And that's how he thinks of Greenland. And she was saying, I had forgotten about this, but this was something that he tried to do in term one. He wanted to buy Greenland, and or he floated it out there, and people just kind of laughed at it back then. But now it's a little bit more serious, given what's happened in Venezuela and what he's done there, and just the rhetoric that he's engaged in around Greenland over the past few weeks. And he's used every excuse in the book for why the United States should have it, and he's tried to sell it and make it more palatable, saying that it's for national security interests, and we need it for this.
China is gonna take it over. China's there already. Like,
Well,
and
it's.
Denmark's like, no, they're not.
Yeah, they're not there. And not only that, but also if we want military bases there, we have an agreement with them that goes back 50 years that allows us to put as many there as we want. And to put anything we want there. And so that's not what it is. It's about ownership for him. And he said that to Susan Glasser. He said it's about ownership for him.
Well, because he doesn't read, or his advisors don't read. If maybe somebody picked up and looked at a document once in a while and realized that if it was that, he could put some, some
Well,
bases there.
I
But
don't think he wants it. I think he wants just the brute force of taking it over. And I think that, I would say Stephen Miller probably reads Mein Kampf a lot.
yeah.
So I think that's one thing they may read. Uh, what was interesting is that NATO countries are now participating in exercises to defend it if need be.
And the part that is disturbing is this is NATO, this is our allies, and we're going to go against our allies. And I do, but yes, the answer is yes, because Donald Trump doesn't give a crap about NATO. I really don't think he values that alliance system at all. I think he sees it as um, a gnat, to be honest.
Well, he
And,
doesn't.
they don't give their fair share and things
Yeah.
like that. So he doesn't see it as a valuable alliance, and he doesn't treat it as such.
Well, he sees the world through a very transactional lens, and if and he'll say he's looking out for the interests of the United States, but it's really his own interests. So if he's not getting in anything in return, then it doesn't matter. This is not something that's valuable to him at all, and he's really entered the Mad King phase of all of this. And for Game of Thrones fans, you know what I'm talking about with the Mad King. And he's entered the Mad King phase of all this. And, I was worried about this towards the end of 2025 that he was leaving the year far weaker than what he began it with. And a weak, despotic, sociopath, half demented, uh, wannabe dictator is going, the more desperate they get, the more extreme they're going to get. And so, and we've seen that play out in these dealings with Greenland and Denmark, in his talk of, his own version of Lebensraum, essentially. And then we're seeing this with the ICE raids in Minneapolis and Massachusetts, and not Massachusetts, in Minnesota. And uh, just the videos that are coming out of there are just deeply, deeply beyond disturbing, I think, at this point. They've doubled down since the killing of Renee Good. They're just dragging random people. They're asking people who look not white to show their papers, essentially. They're going door to door. It's
How are
really,
people okay with that? You
yeah.
know, you see, like, we live on Staten Island. We have our fair share of friends that we grew up with that are Trumpers or conservative. And you've seen my post. You made a comment the other day, like some of
Cantank
my old friends.
cantankerous cantankerous
Yeah,
boomer rubes.
I I'm at a point now with some of my old friends that I grew up with. I'm like, I don't give a shit anymore. I, I can't deal with, you support a man who does this, and 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 I'm sorry that what he is using ICE not to deport people, but to retaliate. He's using this as a form of retaliation. Um, he went into Minnesota, he went into Minneapolis, he claimed it because of the Somali thing, but that was a foreign intervention thing. What does, you know,
Well,
what
it
does
was
going
well,
into Minneapolis have to do with
nothing.
Somalis? I mean, it's Elon Omar's district, but also he's not even picking up people from Somali, like,
It's a couple of things. I think number one, it was the Somali fraud thing. I looked at this with my class last week, the government class, because we were doing a unit on misinformation, and there was actual fraud that took place involving Somali-owned organizations. However, it was
yeah.
prosecuted 4 years ago.
And during the
And
Biden administration.
yes, it was
Yeah.
prosecuted then, and whatever wasn't prosecuted or adjudicated, it was being looked into and investigated by a prosecutor who resigned this week, along with six others, who would not, because he would not investigate the widow of Renee Good and her ties to
Good
supposed
for them.
leftist organizations. And so, any of that was just pretextual bullshit to give a justification for why he is engaging in this dystopian authoritarian crackdown.
Yes. And so, but so he's using that to go in to, you know, Minnesota, Minneapolis, and do these horrible raids. I've been posting constantly things I'm seeing on Instagram and posting them to my stories of it, it's disturbing, it's un-American, and anybody who's actually I found out that two of my friends who are that troll me on they listened to the podcast, and I said thank you for listening. Um, but the thing is, to any of my friends who support Trump, how can you support what he's doing with ICE?
Hmm.
This is not about just deporting criminals. This is not about that. If you look at the videos, this I posted something. This doctor who works in a pediatric, um, one of her patients, the mother was detained, and ICE won't release her to see her son, who's in a pediatric hospital. He's dying. It's like his kid's really sick. Like she's like, what kind of heartless crap is that?
Well, with the Trump regime, the cruelty is the point.
Yeah,
That is,
it's
that is
cruel.
that is it is the cruelty is the point, and the cruelty is the point to show we can do it and we will do it,
And they
and
are doing it. And
there's no moral bottom to it.
and then what's starting to happen is the mayor of Minneapolis is coming out, and so is the governor. Tim Walz is coming out. But what's happening is people are getting angrier, and so as opposed to the peaceful protesters that are coming into the streets, now you have people who are you know, they're becoming more, violent. And then what does that breed as opposed to Trump stepping back? It's his excuse to bring in more people and more agents, and now he might impose the Insurrection Act.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
uh,
and just for our listeners who may not know what that would mean, it would mean not just what he's done in LA and Chicago and now many and other places by deputizing the National Guard and taking federalizing them and taking them the control away from state governors. What this would mean is active duty military would be in those cities if he invoked the Insurrection Act. And basically, it would be like martial law.
yeah,
And so, which is the pretext for what he wanted to do, what he wants to do. He talked about in the years that he wasn't president, he talked about one of his biggest regrets uh was not, shooting protesters during the George Floyd protests because he had sane people to talk him out of that shit back then. Now he's got a bunch of sycophants and yes men and, people who are just as dumb and crazy as he is around him.
yeah. So, sorry, this is un-American. And I had a friend of mine who's a comic who kind of counter, all the things that we're upset about. And he's like, well, he's the president of action. I was like, I'll give him that. But it's like action. It's like if he's dealing with deportations, deal with deportations, but don't go about it this way. This is not the action I want to see taken. You in regards to dealing with Venezuela, you don't go in and just arbitrarily, bomb, boats. Who's on those boats?
Well,
We'll never know. They're dead, but
they're not, we
um,
never know, and they're certainly not going to tell the truth about it.
I don't believe them.
I
Yeah.
don't believe a word that they say. And what change did he actually make in Venezuela? None. But because he left the vice president in charge, who was there under the Maduro regime, and
And
and then this woman, the opposition leader, was there today in the White House, and she gave him her Nobel Peace Prize, and like
pathetic. It's
it is.
so pathetic. You
Well,
have
it
to
might be.
coax him with like a shiny medal.
Yeah,
And
Tim
now
Cook.
he's going to talk to her. He
Yeah,
wasn't interested in talking to her before.
yeah. Well, Tim Cook actually did that too. Tim Cook of Apple, the CEO of Apple, he presented him with a little trinket so that his products wouldn't get tariffed.
Or
Uh,
FIFA, like they gave him that, participation trophy.
Yeah, that made up
So-
award. It was like, if anybody is a Golden Girls fan, I suggest watching the episode where Rose accepts, it was a charity award she was vying for, and and she lost the award to somebody who won it posthumously after they were dead. And so she accepted the award on behalf of the dead person. And at the end of the episode, she sits in the living room and she's like, "Oh, now I gotta." She's like, now I got to get this dead woman's name off the trophy and put mine on it. That's like I picture Trump doing that.
Yeah, I do too. Because he has no problem telling the world that if anyone deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, it's him. But meanwhile, he's going to send in troops. I think he has the CIA stirring up protests in Iran. I think that was a CIA kind of backed. That
Well,
seems to have spurred out of.
yeah, well, the Daily, I would listen to the Daily is another terrific podcast. If you just kind of want the background and the story of how things develop, that's a really good one to listen to. It's about a half hour, 40 minutes in the morning. And I was listening to the stuff about Iran and it was economic issues. It's if anything, it sounded a lot like, the complaints that a lot of Americans have
Yeah.
about just not being able to afford their daily lives, whereas as the people in charge are getting richer and richer and the people who are uber rich are continuing to be uber rich and wanting to amass more wealth for themselves. And so it sounded awful lot like what Americans are saying right now.
Like right now, as we are going to be paying more for healthcare. Thank
Yeah.
you, Nicole Maliotakis, for not voting to extend healthcare coverage. And you and I, even though we have insurance through the city, our insurance has changed. So
Yes, it
a
has.
medication that I get on a regular basis where I was paying a very affordable price of like $50 is now going to go up to $300 because it's going through, we're getting it through Amazon Prime. Remember we used to have Express Scripts,
Yes, yes.
and that was the affordable way to get like medication that you're on all the time.
Hmm.
And I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford it. Might have to stop. It's something. So how is that good? I'm paying taxes since this man's been in office. I mean, I pay taxes. Or maybe I should be like that woman from who's the Charlie Kirk
Erica Kirk?
organization? Yeah, who's the organization? He
Oh, TPUSA?
one of those women were like, oh, then she made a proclamation that she's not going to pay taxes anymore. Maybe, yeah,
Well, that was like, remember that guy from Max Public House when they were imposing all the COVID restrictions and
yeah,
he drew in chalk around his bar. He drew, this is an autonomous zone.
yes.
That's such a white thing. Like, I don't have to follow the rules because I don't want to. This is an autonomous
Well,
zone.
people, do that.
Yeah.
I don't have to follow the rules, but other people do. You
Yeah.
know, I have a PBA card, so I don't have to, not
Yeah.
everybody gets a PBA card.
Yeah, yeah, and the stuff. Well, getting back to the stuff in Minneapolis, I mean, just the stuff that we were discussing before we came on is quite frightening. There was a teacher who I saw that was pulled out of a car for no reason and
The special ed
transported.
teacher who was
Yeah,
detained. Yeah.
yeah. And there's no reason for her detention as far as I can tell. She's a citizen. She's a citizen. She was just sort of randomly pulled out of a car. Um, Somebody else was shot in the leg last night. Uh, so things are just escalating. Things are,
I
uh,
have to say though, I mean, people in Minnesota, please do not feed into this man because he's only going to send in, you know, he's going to do
he's
the
going to send in
insurrection.
active, he's going to send in active duty troops.
Go to the streets, document what you see. But in the ICE training, we were taught not to, you
Don't
know,
engage with them.
don't engage, but document it. Show, they can be cruel, but not that they can be cruel, but I'm saying because if you give them something, they're going to come in even more, and people are going to get hurt. But at the end of the day, when our conservative people are going, well, they're bringing in shovels, and Renee Good, she drove. Let me just stop right there and say none of that would have happened if you didn't bring ICE into Minneapolis and go around and just grabbing people and
Well,
kidnapping people.
and also they're trying to rewrite history and tell us not to believe our lying eyes. She was not driving into the person, and actually CBS News, which is a fucking right-wing, propaganda
Oh, I'm
network now,
that's my station. I'm very, very upset over that. I
because of
love
that
CBS.
because of that awful self-loathing Trump lesbian Barry Weiss, uh, who has turned it into state TV essentially. They posted something on their social media that the guy who shot Renee Good had internal bleeding. Bullshit. Bullshit. That was the only channel, that was the only media
No,
outlet.
I actually heard that I heard that on actually I heard that on POTUS.
Well,
Um,
they may have gotten it from CBS.
yeah.
That was the first and only outlet. I heard it on the
But
I had
that's
it.
news like days later. So
Yeah.
apparently he had some
Oh,
and
bullshit. I don't believe it at all. I think
oh,
he walked away just fine from that.
drove away.
Yeah,
So
he walked away just fine from that. And, he was so in such pain that he was, agonizingly calling her a fucking bitch after he
and
shot
was
her.
able to, shoot 3 times. So
Yeah. So please, fuck off, Barry Weiss.
but at the end of,
No.
I was listening to Dan Abrams because, I listen to him and he's, kind of middle of the road legal. And they were talking about from a legal point of view, like, does this guy have a case? They were, with two sides of yes and no, where they would argue from. Um, but the fact of the, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be, looked into, but those two shots that he had afterwards, went right into her open window. You know,
Mhm.
I I believe, it was that the bullet that, and he was on the side of her car.
Yeah, so how could she run into him? He was on the side of the car, and that mistress of propaganda, Caroline Levitt, who's married to a 60-year-old, by the way, even though she's like 20.
I'm
Uh,
60. We're one.
oh, I know, but she's like, she's
Young.
married, she's married to, she's doing Anna Nicole Smith, but not nearly as good.
Yeah.
Um, but she's, nevertheless, she's on TV saying that this, domestic terrorist was ramming into him with the car. I was like, sweetie, we have eyes. We saw what we saw, and it wasn't, what you're telling us. And there was a meme I saw with from The Sopranos with this. They had this blind guy on there, and it said MAGA. She was running into him with the car, and it was somebody with the scale over his eyes. And it's because they gaslight you like that. Like when you see and hear things with your own eyes, they try and convince you that that's not what you saw and heard. It goes back even, I think the earliest version of this that I could think of is in 2015 when Trump mocked the reporter with the disability. And he said, "Oh, well, I never did that." And his supporters said, "Oh, well, he never did that." We saw it.
I believe that. It's like, yeah, we have video of it. It
You-
it, it happened. Um, but the fact of the matter is that if they weren't in Minneapolis doing what they were doing, none of this stuff would be going on. Um, like I had somebody ask me like, well, Obama like deported. You go, yeah, he did, but he didn't do it the way this is
Well,
going on.
he followed, a legal process to do
Yeah,
it.
fine.
It was a legal process, and it wasn't the point of his operation was to follow the law, not to exercise abject cruelty
Yeah,
and inflict human suffering and to punish cities that did not vote for him.
right.
That is what this is about.
Right. I mean, look at what he's threatening to do to sanctuary cities. He's looking to cut funding for a lot of like people that in regards to poverty that and then the states and the cities are going to have to bear the brunt of that because we're sanctuary cities. So I'm not going to give you, funding for daycare and education and you know, uh,
Well, a judge has
well,
actually paused that one.
I know Hochul's suing him.
Yeah,
So
the several states got together, state attorney
why do we
general.
have to do that? Like, why do we have to go through those steps? And I don't understand how people think that is okay. How is that okay? So I don't want to be friends with people like that anymore. If that's what you value, if you think that the cruelty is okay to meet your ends, then we're not friends. I've lived on this island my entire life, and I've politically always had many people I know who are on the other side. And but this is cruel, and I don't, I'm not def it's hard to defend my friends anymore.
Well, it's not even, you don't have to. I think,
No, I don't want to. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't want to. This is not people I value to be around.
and just, well, I think part of MAGA is that they enjoy the back and forth. Your posts are sort of like a punching bag for them. They wait for them.
I think they're just
It,
white supremacists.
well, and they're
Pretty much.
mostly, and it's like the same, four people. It's the same four people that I could see at least.
Well, and then and then I unfriend them, and then four more show up. So they can't. Well, they're still around. But
anybody who's MAGA, at least that they don't bother commenting because, I'll go there with them but I think the ones who used to comment, the way that yours do, they've long since unfriended, which is fine. See ya. But it, yeah, so, you know, uh,
mine don't unfriend. They
yeah.
just stick around, and it's like It's like they wait. I think I'm on their algorithm because I'm like, Jesus Christ, do you just hang around and wait for me to comment something you don't like? And
Well,
so
if
you could,
well if they commented on one post, the way that it works is that they monitor the time spent on a particular post, and then they think you just want more of it, so they keep giving it to you.
yeah. And then they comment, and then like, I'll have like other people who'd come in and like, then I have my defenders who, there's like two or three guys who come in and then there's this like, if they were in front of each other, they would be hitting each other in the face. Like it's like boys fighting politically, they don't fight, they're like fisticuffs, like, like, but, on a keyboard. And I'm like, I feel like I have to be like, calm down, fellas, you
Oh
know.
yeah, well I was trolling the CSI chapter of TPUSA a couple of times, and actually on
Oh,
our friend Jazzy Robinson's post, one of the people who were in the pictures was like, "Oh, we're here to stay, cry libs or something," and I was. And I said, and he put "we're" as he forgot the apostrophe, so I corrected him, of course. Um, and I said "we're" with a star and with an asterisk, and I said, what drives me nuts is not so much that there's a Turning Point USA. It does that bothers me. It annoys me. It's a hate group. I don't care what anybody
yeah.
says, and their rhetoric has been. Uh, Whitewashed and sanitized since Charlie Kirk was killed. But what they do on the flyer is they represent themselves as a nonpartisan organization and that's committed to
That's what
equality.
they think.
Yeah.
In their stupid little heads, they see themselves as a
I
nonpartisan.
Well, I've been trolling them. Like I've been, I thought of you when I did this post because it was those people who were in 1P, which is the auditorium building, and
Yeah.
they were all there. And I said, when your parents are public sector union workers, but you hate socialism, and you'll very likely be a public sector worker too. Just the odds of being on Staten Island. That's usually what happens. But
Well, when I was at CSI, I was very politically active at CSI, and I always say that I'm the only known socialist who got elected class president. But one of the things that I had to do was kind of approve club. Like you had to approve every club. Like if there was a group that wanted to come on, um, they were allowed as long as they made like bylaws and, and they met and they allowed anyone to come. Like really, you couldn't. Um, and we had some groups. I'm like, Jesus Christ. But we had our newspaper, the College Voice
mm,
was very left radical newspaper. Like my ex-boyfriend John Paul was the editor for a while, and I was the photography editor. And I'm just wondering if, and I think out of after people graduating and we kind of moved on, the Voice seemed to always still have a very radical group maintaining it. I wonder if they're there. I mean, I
well, I
have to
would,
find out, but
yeah. When I
um,
was there, it was
they'll definitely do some in-depth reporting with this new group, that's for sure. There's going to be my friend Pete McParlin said there's going to be a kind of a teach-in at CSI next week on ice. I'm wondering we should probably go and if we're able to, I don't know if it's going to be during the day. Um, go scout the campus.
we have a self-imposed curfew now. We
I don't know
don't
if they
need
do in this the
we
teaching
don't
during the day though. So
we don't need martial law to give us a curfew. We'll go in early ourselves.
well,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, well, I was like, I was so when I saw that, I was like, oh God, because see, my alma mater too, CSI, but it was sort of one of the last places, and not universally, but it was, more or less the majority it's the only place on Staten Island where you could count on finding some liberal thought, and
yes, and that came from the professors.
yes, and so, uh, you
So
know,
they loved us because we were
yeah,
like, we were
yeah.
as opposed to like, do I have to come next week? I'd be like, hey, can I talk to you for a few minutes, like what you were saying? And the professors like ate that up. So, and it was
Yeah.
also very good professors there, still are. So,
Absolutely. And we had one on at the end of the summer, Professor Smith Peter, and I
And one of my former students is going to be teaching. He's taking over Calvin Holder's um, job. My favorite professor, Calvin
yeah.
Holder, who ran the African American Studies program there, passed away. And Mike is going to be teaching, I don't know, he's going to be teaching a few of the classes that he taught. So
Oh,
kudos to
for
him.
him. Yeah,
Yeah.
good for him. Well, unfortunately, unfortunately, he's got to deal with this group. To me, it might sound like an extreme comparison, but to me, they're sort of like, would you give the KKK a charter there? Would you give like a neo-Nazi group the charter? Because that's what this group does. It just puts a veneer of respectability on those kind of extreme beliefs.
I just see they're going to come and they're probably going to taunt any like liberal group. I remember when there was a group of kids at school where I used to teach wanted to start a Democratic club, and so like AP asked if I could lead it, so I was like, yeah, sure. There was like some kids who that was their value system, and there was a Republican club, so fine, but
Right.
we had some kids join the Democratic club, and as we were talking. I was like, this is the Democratic Club.
Hmm.
And they're like, yeah, we're Democrats. I go, "N- this, no, not based off of how you're. And they were and then I found out they were the part of the Republican Club and they were just coming into the club
To
to like
troll.
taunt, to troll. And
Yeah.
I was just like, it just angered me. Like, look, I was like, you know what? If we want to have a debate, we'll organize one and we'll get together. But the kids want to, like, talk about,
Well, that's what Charlie Kirk did.
yeah.
He went to these campuses and debated kids who, they're just kind of learning stuff for the first time in their lives. Like for me, when everybody said, "Oh, he was such a masterful debater," I was like, "Really? Did he ever debate Jon Stewart? Did he ever debate
Right?
Rachel Maddow? Did he ever debate somebody who was of equal or better knowledge than him? I don't think so."
Yeah. No.
And so it was really just about trolling to me.
Yes. And that's what, I think Caroline Levitt's very good at doing that. Somebody asked her a question that she didn't like, and she just went on this diatribe. Like I was just like they pressed a button on her, and she just like wah, 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 wah.
Miss,
Like how
miss,
dare you, you
Mistress,
know,
mistress of propaganda.
you're not a real reporter, and you thought, oh, you're biased, and I'm going, and I said to myself, why isn't this man going? And so are you, like.
Mhm.
Why don't they just volley him, Like a reporter asked the president a question. I was looking at some video and he's like, "You're not a real reporter." And he goes, "Shut up." Like, you know, you just shut up. And like if I was a reporter and I got to that point, I'd be like, I would volley, volley back like it's just absurd how they get away with what they get away with.
Well,
Uh,
and I think a lot of it is just because the public is kind of numb to it. They're sort of jaded to all that. It's almost like it's sort of baked in. You sort of come to expect it from them, and so that's why it's like that. And I really feel terrible for the generation that's coming up because, the Trump era is all they knew. And it's like I think, they don't have the or at least they don't have the base of knowledge of how other presidents operated. They just see what this fucking lunatic is doing.
Well, hopefully they'll see other examples. I think we kind of we started talking about Minneapolis and we kind of went off on
Yeah,
like
we veered
little
off and
mini things, but I want to play what we were talking about in regards to all the horrible things we're seeing that the ICE agents are doing in Minneapolis. I talked about the nurse, I mean the doctor who the kid who was sick. But there was two people detained. And I wanted to play because what's interesting about this is they talk about what it was like inside the ICE facility and what ICE agents were saying to them. So, oh, now I lost it. Hold on one second. I just had it. Um, what was the name of the
I can play it.
Do you have it?
Yeah, I can play it.
All right.
Um,
So, okay. So you want to
yeah.
introduce what we're going to listen to?
Yeah, so this was somebody who was detained by ICE, and she was talking about what the ICE agents were telling her, and I'll let her speak for herself.
Well, who the organization from
Well,
the
yeah, well, this is, I don't know what organization she was representing, but this was posted by the Minnesota House of Representatives Democratic Farm and Labor Party caucus. And so this is what she was told when she was in detention with ICE. These are some of the things that were said to her.
All right, so let's have a listen.
Yeah.
My name is Patty O'Keefe. On Sunday, this past Sunday, January 11th, myself and my good friend Brandon Seguenza were violently arrested and detained by ICE. During that encounter, we had an ICE agent spray pepper spray into our windshield vent. They then broke our windows, dragged us out of our vehicles, handcuffed us, and put us in separate cars. On the way over to the Whipple Detention Center, I was taunted, mocked. Also, on that same ride, one of the agents said that you guys got to stop obstructing us. That's why that lesbian bitch is dead. Speaking about Renee Good, I think it's important, though, that people know that this is what agents are saying. When we got to the detention center, we saw probably about 100 people in holding cells. We heard screaming, crying, just visceral agony from many of the people who were there. Um, someone saying, let me go, let me go, let me go, please let me go, begging. We heard a child crying. My friend Brandon was brought into another room for questioning where he was offered money or legal protection for any undocumented family members that he might have in exchange for names of other undocumented people or names of protest organizers, a bribe, essentially. And another person in his cell, a Hispanic man, was offered that same deal. They both said no. I had a short conversation with a Border Patrol agent who, was wondering why we were here, why we were so passionate about this. And at the end of it, he goes, I think kind of just think that we thought all you guys are crazy, right? And so you have people that are desensitized or okay with dehumanization and also think that people that are out here trying to defend their neighbors are crazy. And that's a really dangerous combination. And I think that is coming across in the way that we see that ICE officers are conducting themselves with people across the city. So I'm just one example of many. I luckily got to come home from that detention center, and most of the people there did not. This is craziness, and it needs to come to an end.
So what are your
Wow.
thoughts?
Well, that's some Nazi type shit. That is some Nazi type shit where, you're asked to turn in other people. You're essentially, like she said,
McCarthyism, name
yeah.
names.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking of the people. I'm thinking of the people who turned it over Anne Frank. Honestly, that's who I'm thinking of. The people who, turned her over and, led the Nazis to where she was hiding in the attic. And, that was the first thing that came to mind when we first played it before we came on. But I think that part of it needs to be discussed more often. I think we see the videos, we see all that. That's uh, horrible enough, but we don't hear nearly as much as this kind of stuff, and we
Well,
should.
there's three things that I want to point out in that clip. First of all, is what the agent said about Good. And it's not the first time I've heard where an ICE agent went up to somebody and said, "Didn't you people learn your lesson with that lesbian?" Like, so, and on the bulwark, he also stated that wasn't the he heard that several times
Yeah.
from ICE agents. So learn your lesson. So are they here to teach us a lesson the other thing that alarms me is the paying people off to name names. And then the third thing is how these agents are desensitized and over what is actually like they're amazed that, people are helping their neighbors.
Hmm.
Um, and I remember with the ice training, they gave us whistles, and I was kind of like, oh, I'm not gonna bring a whistle. Now I have a whistle in my pocket.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, I think I need to hold one. So, um, those are the three things that alarm me with what she said. And that's why I shared it. Because this is what's happening when people are detained. And I've stood in front of Nicole Malliotakis' office and I watched her goon take photographs of us. And you know, when is, in regards to, and if you look at all those ICE agents, they're taking, not the guys who are taking like their own cell phones, they're doing that as well, but they have like professional photographers with them. In
Hmm.
addition, you ever notice there's always a guy with like a pro camera, like with them with an ICE thing? He's recording people's faces.
You're talking about the guy with the press credentials?
So, no, there's like, it's not even just, if I see the press people, but they have other people who are there taking photographs.
Yeah, so you think about that, and well, I remember when we were there for the No Kings in October, there was somebody doing that, and somebody said, "Oh, well, that this it was just kind of a cover for, like a psyop type of thing where, they would do facial recognition software." So half jokingly, I said to people, "Well, it's been nice knowing if I end up at some black site." you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but it's unfortunately it's coming to that now. And I think he's doing this with Tim Walz in Minnesota, because Tim Walz, while he's confrontational, he's not, like Gavin Newsom. I think if they had sent the ICE agents to be as aggressive as they are in Minneapolis and, let's say, San Francisco, I think, Gavin Newsom probably would have met his energy by deploying the National Guard to meet them.
Yeah.
And like I don't like Tim Walz is like, a little bit squishy in that way.
I have a friend who lives in Minneapolis, and before all of this, before even he was the vice presidential candidate, she talked about how much Minnesota loved him and thought he was a great, he's a good governor,
Yeah.
and he's really he represents governing with, not with feelings, but he represents, doing the right thing as a governor, and we can argue and debate with people over like what is the more effective way of governing through fear or governing with kindness. I'm not, you know,
Well, Tim Walz definitely governs through kindness, but I don't know if he's like the type who would ratchet things up to like where he would deploy the National Guard to meet the ICE
well,
agents.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
Like
um,
I think Gavin Newsom probably would do that. Like I think Gavin Newsom probably
well,
would be
he's a
like,
different, yeah, he's a
yeah.
little different than him, but he's not going to run again. But some of the when Good was first killed, his speech, and I think the mayor was like, oh, get the fuck out of here. But um,
Sidebar, he's gorgeous. Oh.
he is. I'll give you yes. So is Newsom, but Newsom went to Ireland. Just a sidebar of that, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, there we go. And they were all like, hello. But I digress. I forgot what I was saying, but I forgot my train of thought. I sidebarred. Oh, why?
Oh, Mayor of Minneapolis.
The mayor of Minneapolis. So they are, you know, they're governing through, like do the right thing. Um, and we can argue if it's better to govern, with fear and force. Yes, you do force people to do stuff, but it's not real, and people are going to retaliate. Like one of the things I'm thinking about with the US kind of bullying the rest of the world, as an American who travels a lot abroad, I'm going to start to worry about retaliation on Americans abroad because they're the easier targets, you know, they're the softer targets. And that's what's going to happen. We're not going to be safe in other parts of the world.
Well, I could always wear this shirt to know, so they know that I'm not with them. I could always wear that shirt, but yeah, no, I agree, and I'm just hoping that John Bacon, who's a Republican from Nebraska in the House, he said I think maybe either it was today or yesterday. He said I would vote to impeach Trump if he invaded Greenland. But yeah, he said I would vote to impeach him, and so I think I don't think it should come to that though. I think
You think he's going to do that? Like,
I think we can't put anything off the table at this point. I don't put anything off the table. I think that um, when something is sticking in his craw, like
choice
Greenland.
NATO if he does that, correct? Like,
Well, yeah, and he doesn't, number one, he doesn't give a fuck about NATO. Number
right.
two, he cares about, like we said earlier, he cares about this from, a real estate developer point of view where, oh, I just have to have that because it's near us. And it's the only thing I don't control. And he also is wanting it for its resources, for the minerals, the earth minerals that they have. And so again, it's something transactional. And he's also serving Vladimir Putin's geopolitical goals by dismantling NATO that way. And so I think there's a few motives in there as to why he would do it.
So all of my right-wing trolls, ask me this, answer me this. How is he why is he entitled to the Nobel Peace Prize? If all he wants, he's invaded, he grabbed a leader, he kidnapped a leader from Venezuela.
He
He's looking
bombed,
to
bombed,
invade.
bombed 8 countries just last year.
So,
Just
yes,
last year, and he's sending troops into American cities to terrorize people.
right? He's threatening
And
to go, bomb again. And so how is this deserving of a Nobel Peace Prize? Answer me that.
well, they can't, and they'll twist themselves into pretzels to do that. But
Justify it.
yeah, they'll twist themselves into pretzels to justify anything he says or does. And I've given up trying to convince those people because they're just too brainwashed. They're too embedded in the cult to really be able
Well,
to
that's why I don't really engage when people on my post comment because I don't post for them. I
no.
post for myself. I post for other people to see. When I share stories of ICE raids or this young woman who talked about what it was like in detention, when I heard that, I'm like, people need to hear that. Not the crazy MAGA people, they don't listen, but people need to hear that this is what's going on. Um, and I just looked up on the screen, Maine is preparing for ice now.
What,
Like
like Portland?
Lewis and something that just said yeah,
Well, I'm
there.
surprised. Is Susan Collins deeply concerned?
No, she wasn't up there. It was the governor. The governor was speaking.
Oh, I know. Well, I'm teasing because,
Oh yeah.
Susan Collins is always deeply concerned, and then she folds like the
And
corner
then
of a
she
fitted sheet.
said she votes with
Yeah,
Trump.
she folds like the corner of a fitted sheet.
Yes.
And so I'll know that things are going to get real when Susan Collins says she's deeply concerned.
And and then also right-wing conspirator people, grocery prices are still up, healthcare is up. Prices have, so I remember Elon Musk's like, it's going to get really bad and then it's going to be really good. Like, I remember he said that.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, at the time he was under the delusion that he was doing something meaningful with Doge, and I think even now he admits that it was, all for naught. And so I don't think we can do that. And he was probably in a ketamine haze by then.
well, what's going to get really good when there's a Democrat in office because they're going to have to fix all the crap that this president has done. This is only his second year. And
Yeah, yeah, it is, and it feels like it's like one year was like 15, like dog years. It was just awful, but we have some encouraging local news. Extend my
two.
I want to extend our congratulations to Councilmember Camila Hanks. It was announced District 49 North Shore. It was announced today that she is the majority whip in the city council, and I don't know how much that matters in a body where everybody's a Democrat, basically, all but maybe six or seven people. But I think that that's certainly a good thing for Staten Island to have somebody in such a high profile role from Staten Island.
Yeah, that is a good thing. And I also believe that Mondami is going to pay more attention to us a little bit more.
I hope so. That'll be nice, and I hope so, and I think that I wish her a lot of luck in that role. I think she'll do well, and I think she shares the speaker's priorities. That's part of the reason why I think she was chosen for this role. She's very much aligned with Julie Menon's priorities, and Julie Menon is in the New York Times, and in other places, although she downplays this part of her role. Julie Menon is largely seen as kind of a moderate or centrist check on Mandani. And
Yeah.
so and so I think that they share that sort of frame of doing things. And all of the chair people and all of the leadership roles were announced today. That's how we know about Camila Hanks as the majority whip.
How do you think he's doing this? So far so good.
It's only
Um,
been 2 weeks. He's texting with Trump a whole lot, I heard.
so I haven't heard that. I know that
Yeah.
I know that he gave him his point of view in regards to what's happening.
Well, in
Um,
Venezuela, he did, yeah. And
so
he was Axios reported that they text on a regular basis, and I think I said this a couple of episodes ago. I think Trump's a little gay. Like I think because his decor is a mix between Liberace and Qusay Hussein, and then you and he's blasting Phantom of the Opera. He like the only time I ever saw him smile was with Mamdani and with the guy from BDS from Saudi Arabia. So he's got a thing with like Middle Eastern men.
young men,
So and he said reportedly to Mamdani that he's even better looking in person. And so I think there's a little bit of like, a little bit of this with Trump, a little bit of this.
well, if it prevents him from cutting off funding to the city, then like our mayor as much as you want.
Oh yeah, well I'm okay with that. Let's and supposedly Axios says that whatever's going on in Trump's schedule, he makes time when Mamdani calls.
Well, good.
And
So
so
I
it's good.
mean, so Mondami's been texting him, in regards to the threats that he's making. So if that holds him off bay, that will be great. He doesn't respect women. He's not giving that to Hochul. Um, and he certainly doesn't respect excuse me, the meeting that, how he usually has a meeting with officials and they're like seated on the couch, but he met with the Venezuelan woman who
The
oh,
opposition leader,
the opposition leader. I need
Machado.
Machado. Yes.
And she supposedly presented, she regifted her Nobel Peace Prize to him.
Well, did that happen? Because we didn't see it.
No, we didn't see it, but she said it. She said it. So I'm more inclined to believe her than I am him. But and I think, if she thinks it'll meet her ends, if she wants to really gain power in Venezuela,
But
she may view this as the ticket.
all right, so correct me if I'm wrong. That woman won the election that
She couldn't
Maduro.
She
uh
couldn't run. She was barred from running, but she's the opposition leader. But her protege won. And this
okay.
was and he was and he said, well, it was, fake and fraud election. I wonder where he got that from. And and then they were barred from ever taking power.
So where does he get this notion? He said this several times that she doesn't have the support of the people. I'm like, but didn't her party win the election? So
Well, no,
uh,
she doesn't have, no, correction, translation. She doesn't have his support because because she won the prize and he
and
didn't.
he did. So
And
he
so that,
doesn't
yeah,
like her. And how dare a woman, be
yeah. Or anybody but him. Like, why, like, anybody but him do that? But, you know, I think that's, like, I believe that she may have regifted, she may have regifted, her prize to him just because she thought it would achieve her ends, but I don't know.
well, according to Norway, they're like, you can't, they're
You
like, you
can't
can
do
give him
that.
the medal, but you can't give him the prize. Sorry.
Well,
That's,
yeah, well, that's sort of like when he slaps his name on the on the Kennedy Center and on this and that. Or when he calls the Department of Defense the Department of War. That's, that's nice, maybe nice cosmetically, but it's not done through congressional statute, so it's illegitimate.
I like how some people are refusing to perform there now since they're canceling
Oh
their
yeah,
contracts
yeah,
because of that. Good for them. Kudos this week to the civil rights in the Department of Justice who quit because they were not going to prosecute Good's partner and also they were in protest the fact that they were not investigating what was his name? Ross, the shooter. I think that was his last name. Not sure.
yeah. Well,
Um,
there were six prosecutors, and we touched upon this briefly earlier. One of them was actually the same prosecutor who was investigating the actual Somali fraud that was going on in those Somali-owned enterprises. And there was, he refused to, and others refused to look into the widow of Renee Good, for supposed leftist, agitator ties, because they knew it was bullshit. And actually, judges, have been throwing out a lot of these legal cases. And the thing that with Jerome Powell, did we talk about Jerome Powell?
no, we did not.
No. Oh, okay. Well, then we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about a more local thing. But Jerome Powell, head of the Fed, has not been lowering interest rates the way that Trump wants him to, because he has to balance out high inflation. And much of Trump's policies are highly inflationary, like tariffs, like this mass deportation stuff. That's also highly inflationary because it roils the labor market. And so he's not bringing interest rates down at a rate that Trump is unhappy with, is happy with, and so he's trying everything to get rid of him before his term ends in May. And so this latest move is that he has the Justice Department looking into bullshit allegations that Jerome Powell lied to Congress about the cost of renovations of the Fed's
Once
building.
again, weaponizing the Department of Justice.
Yeah, and it's actually the same guy who's been going after Tish James. Bill Pulte is the one
Yeah.
he's the one who's behind the stuff with Powell. And
Well,
Bill Pulte,
Monty's behind it.
yeah, Bill Pulte and Judge Box of Wine Janine Pirro. They are both behind it. Steven Tyler in drag, uh, Janine Pirro. And they are both behind all of this. And so, but actually, there's actually a bit of good news here, because number one, Jerome Powell basically did his own video, which was
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
surprising for him. He's kind of a low-key guy. He doesn't,
But
even
I
when
think it's like, this is bullshit.
yeah.
It's
When
bullshit.
Trump's attacked him over the past year or so, he hasn't responded, he hasn't done anything. He's kind of a low-key guy, but he basically went on and said, this is about the fact that I am not, he said, this is not about me lying to Congress. This is not about the project renovations. This is not about anything other than the fact
But he
that
won't lower interest
he
rates.
won't lower interest rates based on the whims and preferences of the president.
And
And
the Fed chair has always been separate, even though the
independent.
president appoints, but he's always been independent. And that's the other thing. Like the Department of Justice is supposed to be independent, and now he wants the Fed chair under his wing as well. And once again, ruling more towards authoritarianism.
Well, in this case though, I think actually Jerome Powell comes out the winner here
Yeah.
because I think this has made him stronger. He was, just to be clear, he was appointed by Trump himself in the first
Yes.
term.
And I posted a video the other day of how Trump was talking about Biden appointing him, and then they show the video of him on the White House
Yeah.
with Powell going, appointing him. And it's like, oops, like
Well, to be
I
fair,
want someone
Biden.
to show him those videos as those are happening and respond to that. Like, you're gonna tell me that didn't happen? You're right
Well,
there.
yeah. Well, and to be fair, Biden did reappoint Jerome Powell, but I would say that, but Trump was the one who initially brought him in. And basically, Jerome Powell, I think, comes out the winner in all of this because he has enough credibility to call Republican senators who usually, when they're asked about something Trump says or done, they always say, "Oh, I haven't seen it. I don't know anything about it." But they were actually pretty forceful in their defense of Jerome Powell, Tom Tillis, John Kennedy, not JFK, obviously, but John Kennedy of
Huh.
Louisiana. Go
Louisiana.
ask, go ask a crackhead that one.
Yeah, love this. Wow, wow.
He's funny, and oh, please Google the video of him reading like perverted books out loud. It's hilarious.
Sure
And
is.
oh, it's hilarious.
Well,
But
I'm
he
glad
stepped forward.
Republicans stuck up for that, like some
Yeah.
of them did, because they blocked, the War Powers Act.
Yes. Well, I knew even if they had like a simple majority, they would really need a veto proof. They would need something,
We'll need to
more
go out and
binding.
vote in November, please.
Yes. Yeah, and so Jerome Powell, I think, comes out on the better end of this. And there's actually another video you should Google. Maybe I'll put it in the show notes where Trump actually showed up to the Fed headquarters to criticize Jerome Powell to his face about the project renovations and the building renovations. And Jerome Powell comes out to meet him, and they're doing a press availability. And Trump is proceeding to lie about the costs of the building, and Jerome Powell is correcting him in real time
Yeah,
at that
good.
point. And so he's like, "No, that's not true. That was built 5 years ago." He was like, it was so funny.
That video was a while back. Yeah, I remember that.
It was a few months ago. It was, I think, maybe mid-November, and but it was, it speaks to what's happening right now. So I do think,
The
and
president lying
yeah.
constantly.
And Jerome Powell actually just retained, a law firm that's pretty aggressive, one of the ones that did not bend the knee to Trump. And actually, it was Abe Lowell, who was also Tish James's lawyer throughout all of her stuff with this administration too. And he comes out the winner, I think, here, Jerome Powell, on this.
Good.
And he comes out the winner, and I don't like when Judge Box of Wine was asked about this, about the seriousness of the charges, she actually downplayed them. Oh, it's not that serious or whatever, because by then it had gotten to her that this was not going to go where they thought it was. And so Judge Box of Wine demurred when asked about it. Um,
So there was that, and then what else do we want to end? Because we're coming up past the hour, so
yeah, well, there's
and
one.
also our bedtime.
Yes, it is. Well, one more local thing in addition to Councilwoman Camilla Hanks becoming the deputy or the majority whip, I should say.
Yeah.
We have seems like a race for the primary for SD Senate District 23, which is currently held by Senator Jessica Scarcella Stanton. Um, Mohammed, I forgot his name already. Shit. Um, Let me see. Omar Mohammed, that was his name. I flipped his name around by mistake. Omar Mohammed is challenging her, it seems like, from, kind of a Zohran Mamdani kind of left-wing plank. He
We'll
doesn't,
know more
yeah,
about him. I don't know. It's the first I'm hearing it from you, so uh,
yeah, he's
well,
my friendship with the senator aside, this guy doesn't seem like he's ready for prime time.
we don't
He
know. I'll see.
I was impressed by the video at first. It was he he talked about his background, and then he's like, "Oh, I did this, I did that, and now I'm standing for state assembly." And you're not running for assembly, dude. You're running for the Senate.
Good, you put that in. I'm so glad you did. There you go. I knew you were going to do that. But anyhow, we'll see what happens because hey, she should be primaried. She's a bit conservative for the North Shore, and I know she has constituents that she has to deal with, but there are more liberal constituents that might want something a little bit different. So welcome a primary, and you know, she does good work, but she's a little too conservative for my blood, even though she's your good friend. The Holtman Bakery thing kind of pissed me off. So, but she has very great abilities of always standing behind Vito Fossella. So, as his great triumph now is to go after the CYO and the mothers, fighting in the ring. So they're 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 cracking down on the parents fighting at CYO basketball games. And and then also, this is actually more serious, is that there's some vandalism going on in churches. So there was a guy who, some mental health thing, ran into church in St. Anne's, and then, church threw some poo at
Saint
St.
Sylvester's.
Sylvester's. At first, I thought that was Scott LeBedo because that's what he was known for, but it wasn't.
Ew. Ew, he was known for that.
Well, he did a protest at Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Museum. There was an artist that Scott was protesting. He did some sort of religious thing that he thought defamed the Catholic Church. And so Scott went to the Brooklyn Museum and threw like donkey shit
Ew.
at the artist's work, and he got arrested for it.
Ew.
So
Well,
when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, Scott back at it again," but he's
well,
not. He's actually doing a more tamer project. He's looking to get flags down at the memorial, 9/11 memorials in the World Trade Center, which is like, you know what, let him do that,
fine. That's
That's
sort of
fine.
benign. That's sort of benign compared to what he's been up to in the last few
Yeah,
years.
yeah. So,
But as far as this primary is concerned, this was not the only primary. I'm talking about Jessica's primary now. Uh, this is not the only primary where I've seen Mamdani copycats make their entry into, and I just don't think that everybody who does that has the same star power or talent that he does.
people didn't know who he was last year, and now he's the mayor.
Well,
And
and
I think as DSA has, you have a DSA leader in you know, as the mayor, you're going to see a lot more progressives, you know, come out of the woodwork
well,
because of the
and
leadership. And it's good.
Well, I was talking to somebody in Mamdani World not long ago, maybe a few days ago, and we were talking about just how things went last year. And I said, well, his message was compelling, no doubt. He's excellent as far as his communication and media skills are concerned. But I also think he had the stars align. He had the most unlikable person on the planet as his opponent. And I think that really helped him. And actually, the person agreed, even though he's deep into Mamdani world and fully bought in on the agenda and all that. But he said, this person said, if Cuomo were not a factor, he were not in the race or anything, we might be looking at a Brad Lander mayor or Adrian Adams mayor, because I think mainly his agenda, but it was also the stars aligning and having the most unlikable person on the planet as an opponent. And so I think that was a confluence of
I
factors.
think
And
Wendami won because he's a very good leader. He's an excellent leader, and I think he ran a very good campaign. I think he went door to door and he tapped into people um, that haven't been tapped into. And there are a lot of people like that in New York City. And the standard old Democrats who do the same old bullshit and cave to like the middle and, the conservative Republican. There are other people. New York City is a liberal town. We live on Staten Island. It's kind of hard sometimes to see that because of where we live. But he, when we were talking about the campaign last week, how people became like, attracted to Mandami's campaign. It was because, you know, what he offered, and he's a good leader. He wasn't my first pick, but I like the way he handles things, and I think that's going to be good. I really do. I like the way he handles confrontation. I like the way and I see him taking on things differently than you normally do, and they're good ideas. They are. I wasn't thinking of this before, but one of the things he went and tackled right away is he went after the food apps and the delivery guys this week. I thought that was great. Um, those those people like who are delivering food make pennies, and the DoorDash people, and that's a very big part of New York City income. Um, and those people were getting ripped off from corporate greed. And this is what he's talking about. And so the fact that he's going after these greedy corporate, you know, these people were making $1.50, whatever on a tip, and then we're making below 50 cents. Um, and he went after them. And like I like that he's doing stuff like that. And then he's also good at recognizing where he has to kind of play ball, like, texting Trump. He's working with Hochul. He's working with Hochul where Hochul can him and meet, like with
Well, I noticed.
education.
Yeah, I notice he's not backing though a lot of these left-wing primaries. He's not doing that, and he's not
Too
backing.
busy. Like, well, it's too early.
Well,
I
but
mean,
even before he got into office, when Che Asi was thinking of challenging Jeffries, he did not support that. Neither did AOC, and so a lot of these other and he's demurred on a lot of these other challenges as well. He hasn't been full-throated about those challenges as far as I can see. The only one who I know that he's endorsed Brad Lander, who's running against Dan Goldman, but that's about it.
that's a progressive.
Yeah, that's
Um,
that's about it though. I think as far as APAC, I think that's probably the big issue in that race, but I don't see where they differ on most other things though. Lander and Goldman, they seem kind of, in sync on policy other than the APAC
well,
stuff.
they're both Democrats, so of course they're going to sink on a lot of things. But who sponsors you you know is a difference. And maybe for some people there might be, well then, what's the difference? So they're going to have to that's where they're going to have to battle it out. And if you're an incumbent, you have, usually the advantage because people know your work. And so they'll be like, I'll vote like Jessica, like people will, gravitate to her in the primary because they know her work and they know what she's done, whereas they don't know this guy at all.
And
Uh,
also, well, just on Staten Island, I don't
but like
know.
you said, like it's a healthy shake of the
Oh
party.
yeah,
Like they're,
I'm for primaries, and I'm
yeah,
convinced. I am convinced that if there is a primary, because there is a process, there's petitions. Sometimes there are challenges, and sometimes people are knocked off the ballot. Jessica herself has never done that though. Like she's had primaries in the past where she's had two or three challengers, and she's never challenged anybody's signatures. But
that's
yeah,
good. Good point.
she's never challenged anybody's signatures, and I'm confident she'll win the primary if there is one, because she's been a good senator. I don't agree with her on a lot of stuff, but as far as what she's done, you know, if we're comparing her to other local officials, I mean, co- sponsoring and writing and getting a lot of things into law, like 33 bills. I mean, Nicole Maliotakis has been in office for 15 years, and I can't name one bill that she shepherded through to a successful
She's
conclusion.
horrible, and
Yeah.
that's the one person I really wish would be voted out of office. I really do.
Yeah. And so
And
yeah, and by the way, that guy, if his campaign really takes off, he's welcome to come on and make his case.
oh,
Uh,
definitely, I would love to have him on.
to our listeners, and Jessica's always welcome as well. She knows that.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and she's been on.
Yeah.
Uh, and we will, we're still in front of Nicole's office on. We were there on Monday. with a vigil for good. Um, and we got a lot of car horns, as much as like some of the comments in the SI Live post, but a lot of people driving by gave some beep beeps, and there was about 100 people there for the candlelight vigil, and it was good to see. It was good to be there. So, um, usually every Monday there's some sort of.
Something. I'm usually coming back from work at that time. I'm usually on the road by then.
Well, I'm glad that as much as it's going to be hard to defeat her as an incumbent. I'm glad there's a presence in front of her office, constantly reminding people of what she is not doing.
Well,
Now,
yeah, and I want to see, I really want, we talked about this through text. I really would love to have, he's been all over the place. I would love to have Mark Elias come on and talk about his lawsuit to change the boundaries of CD11, because they say
and we
that,
should have Troy McGee on too.
yeah, well, and Mike DeSillis when, if and when he enters, and whoever else wants to, it's,
Is he going to do that?
Uh, yeah, that's what I'm hearing. But it's up to him to make the announcement and stuff. And he did a few videos this week. He was on another podcast, the Grice Report, who we've had on this show before. He was on there talking about issues and stuff, but he didn't make any announcements. But
Okay.
I'm sure that's coming.
All right.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
it's 9:30.
yes. And well, Rogan talks for 3 hours, but we're not Rogan.
Yeah, we don't have a studio with a microphone and, $1 million behind us paying us. We got to go to work tomorrow.
We do. And on that note, this is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I'm Andrew Savage.
And I'm Nancy Richards, and we're going to bed.
Yeah.
Have a good night.